Do you ever wonder how great leaders in the community make things happen? When they encounter new, unexpected challenges like a pandemic, how do they continue to successfully make an impact? Welcome to That Sounds Terrific, the podcast that connects you with these amazing people. Get insights on what they do to meet their goals, find out how you can help them in their mission, and learn their methods so you can be more successful at what you do. Welcome to That Sounds Terrific with host Nick Koziel.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of That Sounds Terrific. I'm your host, Nick Koziel, and joining me today is Ashley Fico, CEO and co-founder of InnoQuests LLC and an assistant professor at SUNY Brockport. Thanks for coming on the show, Ashley.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Well, it's so exciting to have you here because I love, this is what my listeners could probably get used to. I just love everything, it seems, but I love all the things you're doing on LinkedIn and this business concept that you have. But I wanted to kind of touch base a little bit about who you are and where you come from. And can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your pie in the sky bio?
Yeah, sure. So I'm from the Rochester area, grew up here, family's still here, and grew up going through Brockport schools. Went to graduate school for communication, focusing in health communication, and then really spent a good portion of my career doing research on interpersonal communication in the context of health. Then I was really excited by the idea of spending a little bit more time teaching. So at that point, I moved over to SUNY Brockport, where I'm working with some great people in their Department of Public Health, instructing our students on research design, statistics, behavior theory. And then in a total, I guess, change of directions, my brother and I decided we really needed to do this startup together. And so I started learning a whole lot of new skills and putting them into action.
Well, you're a natural because I feel like some of these skills, I've always been there kind of innate in you because since I've met you, I follow you on LinkedIn and every day it seems like you have a new post, challenging us to really think about, not only our own lives, but society. And I love that you take the time and the way you set up those posts to kind of really, get people to think and then respond. And some of the engagement that I see happen on those posts are just the most genuine kind of exchanges between people on LinkedIn. And I'm connected to a lot of people, but you in particular, I don't know, where do you come up with your your posts?
Honestly, from anywhere. And I so appreciate you saying that because it's really been a pretty new practice for me. I would say I've probably only been posting regularly for about 3 weeks now or so. But honestly, I found it to be tremendously freeing. There's something really empowering about sharing how you're feeling about something and then being able to interact with people, whether they feel the same way as you or not, as long as it's a good dialogue. I just think that's a really cool thing to see. So in terms of where the ideas come from, I'll be watching a movie and something will occur to me. I'll be, reading something and I'll have a thought. One of the random things I've taken to doing is just each week I'll pick kind of a random hashtag and start following it on LinkedIn. So, last week was neuroscience, and it was kind of, well, let's see what comes up in my feed that's interesting that might spark something for me, because I think there's always a lot more overlap between fields than we necessarily think there might be at first.
Well, that's a great little tip, to try to do that. I don't know if I'd ever come up with neuroscience as one of the ones that I would follow randomly, but maybe I should. Maybe I'll get a little smarter from it. But no, I think, like I said, it's so natural the way and that these posts seem to come about. And I did notice it was sort of recent, but as a nice, pleasant surprise to see. And I look forward to them. Okay, what's Ashley going to come up with now? And it makes me think a little bit harder, but how am I going to respond to this? Because I want to, and sometimes I do take the cheap way out. I just celebrate. Yay. really great thought. I don't know if I'm going to say anything, but you take an extra step that people are not comfortable doing nowadays. Even like I say even myself, but myself included, it's hard sometimes to kind of lay your heart out, especially in like a more professional network like LinkedIn that's used to like, business is business and here's what we're doing to make the business world better. And then something like yours pops out and you're like, well, no, that business, this belongs in business, making decisions and where your decisions come from, and they're from personal experiences that you encounter each day. So
Mhm. Yeah, I think it's so funny now to see, you'll see post after post about these debates of, is LinkedIn professional or personal, and what belongs and what doesn't. And I think at the end of the day, it's about remembering we're all people, right? And
right,
so, how can I connect with you professionally if I don't know you personally on some level? We have to have some trust, some relationship.
right.
We have to understand where the other one's coming from. And so to me, I just think it naturally blends together. And, you really can't parse the two apart unless you're going to be pretty, um, you know, boring, for lack of a better word. You're going to
Yeah,
post the same things we've seen before, the same standard advice and
right.
everything else.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, you inspire me to do a little bit more of that. I think because I've been preaching it, I have a career support group that I facilitate, and talking about being more of yourself, especially in the interview process, because some people, in the group and even outside of the group that I know have had really poor experiences in work culture. And it had a lot to do with not being real or true to themselves,
Hmm.
and that's kind of hard to kind of be yourself sometimes in a professional relationship, depending on the industry, for sure, because some are more forgiving than others. But I
Hmm.
think that you need to be yourself so that you you know what you're getting yourself into, for one thing, and they know what they're getting. Yeah,
Yeah.
I can be kind of sarcastic and silly at times, and that probably doesn't belong in something like banking. you know,
Right.
um, and so, but I'm still of that adage where like I look at a job description or something like that, and I'm like, oh, I could do that. And then my wife or someone's like, it says astronaut. I don't think you're adequately trained for that. I'm like, but yeah, I could do it.
I could learn.
I'm a fast learner. So yeah, being the
That's
guy that,
great.
what happens if I hit this button? NASA would love me. Um, so, but I couldn't have this interview with you without bringing up some of your interaction on LinkedIn, because I think it kind of goes also to the entrepreneur and the startup kind of personality, right?
Hmm.
So you're taking risks, but you also have to kind of continually pitch your idea to various
Hmm.
people. And I do want to get into like, what is InnoQuest, and like, where did that idea come from? And can you give us a little sky overview of what your product is or what your business is?
Sure, yeah. So Interquests will basically be developing, well, we have developed a mobile app. And so essentially what it does is it creates these interactive adventures that are played in real world locations. So I kind of tell people sometimes it's a little bit similar to like a real world escape room. So you log into the app, you buy your ticket, and you're going to find yourself immersed in a story. So you're following videos, you're getting clues on your phone, and that story is going to guide you from place to place in your city. And so at each place you arrive at, you'll have to solve a puzzle, and you'll have to do that by looking at the world around you. So, maybe you have to figure out a code to unlock something on your phone, but you can only do that if you look at this particular piece of artwork or something. So it's really all about, kind of, if I wanted to talk about kind of the why or what excites me about it, I think it's just a really cool way for people to connect with each other and with their communities, and I think that's so important always, but especially I think having all just been through this pandemic, there's no better time for it than,
Yeah.
to start being able to get back out there and experience things again. In terms of where it came from, so this is kind of funny. So my brother and I have the company together. And so for a number of years, we used to do what we would call Sunday Fun Day.
Mhm.
And so we would pick one Sunday every month and just go try something new. We would go roll sushi and go, to a ropes course. And some of these things we were good at, and some of these things we were really horrible at. But they were always so much fun. Like, it was just this relaxed day where I could just hang out with my brother and be myself. And so from that, we kept thinking about, well, what's the next thing? What's the next thing? And we did an escape room. We loved that. We did a scavenger hunt and we liked that. And then we thought, isn't there something kind of next level we could do here where you're really solving puzzles and interacting with the world around you? And so then we just went for it.
That's awesome. Where did InnoQuest come from? Where did that name come from?
That's a great question. So I'll be honest with you. Before we applied for our LLC, internally we had called ourselves InnoVentures for a year.
Uh-huh.
And then we found out, ooh, that domain name isn't available.
Right.
So then we started thinking about, what might fit. But the idea initially was it's innovative and it's a quest, it's an adventure. And so that's where we put the two together in a quest, and I really like the way it turned out because
Mhm.
a quest is what you're really doing. You're really following this story and you're going on your own little journey and learning things about your community along the way.
So of course my brain goes to like Monty Python. I go, what is your name? What is your quest? What is your favorite color? So um so my brain, I don't know, but I think that it's an idea that when I've introduced you to various people in my network, I've kind of tried to explain to them what I think it is. So I say, oh, it's kind of like escape room meets Pokemon Go, and and they're like, oh, cool. And so that's kind of hopefully a good description. um I remember I have a friend who was constantly on that app going around to like, oh, I caught one. And I'm like, what are you talking about? You know, standing in the middle of traffic catching Pokemon. I don't understand that. But this I do get. And I think it's really neat because, coming from an event management background and working with alumni at various colleges and always looking for like the next cool hip thing to do. A lot of my work was around regional and chapter events. So going to cities and having, interactive events or even just social events at like a given location. Um, but what I liked about this was because it's kind of timely, like you said, with the whole pandemic that is occurring. This allows you to still sort of be in your own place, but interact with others,
Mhm.
towards like this common goal and, of working together to kind of complete that quest.
Mhm. Yeah.
So how do you build one of these? Like how to like do you have to go, like if it's in Boston, do you need to go to Boston to kind of build out the quest or
I do. So you can imagine I'm going to pick some exciting locations for myself.
that's
But we
awesome.
started here in Rochester, and the neighborhood of the arts to me was just a really natural fit.
Right.
And so we just went downtown, spent an afternoon, and just started taking pictures of everything.
Mhm.
And then I came home and I started, looking at the pictures and playing games online and thinking about escape rooms I had done and different types of puzzles. And kind of bit by bit, I would be texting my brother and saying, okay, well, how there's this panel on this piece of artwork. What if the date that's there worked as the entry code for this? What do you think of that puzzle? And then I design the puzzle, from a graphic perspective and send it over to him and he would make it happen.
Mhm.
And then eventually, really, we kind of worked a story around it. So, I mean, the whole thing is kind of a continuous narrative where there's a main character who leads you through it, and she's kind of popping up on video here and there and telling you, you know, kind of little hints about where to go next and her story. So I think it should be immersive and fun, and, you know, hopefully a little bit more adventure than just kind of the standard, you know, walking tours that we've
Right.
all done.
Yeah, I mean, like, and when we first spoke, I'm like, wow, the potential for this idea is just like astronomical. So, like, you know, you talked about walking tours. I instantly went to some of the ghost tours, you know, so you could have a
Yeah.
Halloween edition, you know, and people that have always wanted to go certain places but never could maybe get there might be able to do some of these things, right? So, and then of course, I always go back and you work at a college too, to the college experience. I mean, one of the things that we used to love to do for, you know, our alumni was to take pictures of different parts of campus and sort of like really focus on something and then start gradually pulling out until someone guessed where that was, you know? So just trying to be innovative with what we, you know, what we can for those alumni that might not be able to get to campus, you know, back to campus frequently. So I'm sure, you know, there was a number of challenges that popped up like when you first came up with this idea, but like, I guess, can you go over some of the things that were the most challenging when you were putting this whole concept together?
Yeah, so there were plenty. I really wish I could say no, Nick. It's been an amazingly
Everything
smooth
went
ride, but
perfectly fine.
I don't think anyone has that story. um, you know, I think a big thing is that we were doing this on the side. So time is definitely a barrier. You know, I mean, I have a full-time job, he has a full-time job. And so this was all separate from that. So finding time for it, you know, took a lot of commitment and dedication. Other challenges we've run into, really are still running into, is understanding kind of the nuances of the app stores. So
Right.
there are a lot of particular policies about what you can and can't do in your app. And so, you know, I understand some of these things exist for a very good reason, for security purposes, and that's great. But then there are some other ones that are a little more challenging for me to wrap my head around. And so it means like kind of rethinking things from a design perspective. So it's always frustrating, you know, if you have to make revisions you weren't
Right.
expecting to
Anticipating.
make. But I mean, you know, I think right along we've just kept saying, whatever it is, we're going to push through it.
Sure. And what did your family and your friends think about like the idea? Were they really supportive, or did you have like people that were like, "You're crazy"?
A little bit of both.
Right.
My immediate family was incredibly supportive. They were really excited. I think initially they maybe wondered if we were going to stick with this idea, because we had had other ideas where we had kind of started to go down a path, and, you know, I think made a smart choice and realized it wasn't the right direction to take a business. But so I think initially they kind of thought, well, are they gonna, you know, pivot
Yeah.
again? But I think once we were, you know, really consistent with it and building it more and more, they started getting really exciting. And then friends, it's so funny, for a long time I didn't mention it to anyone. It was just kind of, you know, this thing we were doing that I didn't talk about. And so it was so funny. I saw a friend the other day, hadn't seen her through most of the pandemic, and she goes, "What have you been up to?" And I said, "Oh, this is random. We built a mobile app in a company."
Nothing. Been up to nothing. No, yeah, I get that too, like with like, you know, that common question that seems like every old connection or even some of the people that I've been pretty staying in touch with ask like, what have you been up to in the pandemic? You know, nothing. I feel busier than I've ever been, you know,
Yeah.
in multiple full-time jobs it feels like I have. But
Mhm.
but that's great. But you know, the danger that you have right now is that like, oh well, you know, she can just put together an InnoQuest for us then. So you're just going to be that event planner for like every family reunion and friend party. Oh, let's invite Ashley. She'll put an InnoQuest together. It'll be fun.
Takes a little more work than that.
Just pop it in and set it and forget it, right? That's all it is, right? So
I wish.
can you talk about any of the locations that you're, opening up to, or
Yeah, so we definitely have been giving thought to where our next location should be. I think it probably needs to be a bit of a bigger city that has some more tourist activity.
sure.
I'm really excited to be starting here because I love Rochester. And even for me, it was so cool planning it. How many times have I been through Neighborhood of the Arts? But how many times have I really stopped, like you said, and kind of honed in on things and really looked? And the
Mhm.
answer for me, at least, was not as many as I should have.
Right.
So I really like that I can do that here first. But then I think, kind of, from a business perspective, if you're talking about a city where there's greater tourist activity, it might be kind of a bigger market to hit, so
Right.
to speak. So a big one we've talked about is actually Las Vegas, particularly because the other thing I try to think about is, so far we have been thinking of everything in terms of it has to be kind of, walkable. People need to be able to move pretty easily from place to place. And so to me, it's kind of natural. You've got the strip, you've got all of this crazy stuff to see,
Mhm.
and it's all condensed. And you've got a good portion of millennials and Gen Z who are going there, probably, in the near future, going back there. So to me, I think it could be a good fit. And, like I said, I have to go to plan the quest. So, I mean, it's part of the job.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, then I would definitely be doing like Honolulu. So, I mean, that's top of my list. Or,
Yeah.
and I'm sure there's lots of legal and other ramifications that you have to kind of be concerned with. But like the other place that pops in my head is something like Disney, you know?
Yeah.
So like, that's kind of a cool little place where there's lots of different things you can do, but I'm sure that they would find ways to say that that's a big no-no.
Right.
So, but
Yeah.
Vegas, I think that that'd be a really great place, for all the reason that you just, said. So we have
Nice.
Rochester, and then the next is Vegas, right? That's so cool. Um,
Just might be.
so where do you see this going in the future? Like what's the pie in the, I keep on saying pie in the sky dream. This is like the third reference. Sorry, listeners.
I just want to keep growing it and see what happens. It's funny you mentioned Disney in that last comment, because I agree, right? I can't just pop into Disney and make my own quest. But I would love to see us partnering with places like
Right.
that, where they say kind of, hey, can you create a customized InnoQuest for us
Right.
that when people, come to our museum, when people come to our
Right.
art gallery, they download the app and all of a sudden they have this extra adventure on top of what they're already doing. So I'd really like to just keep moving into those different applications. I mean, I think conferences are another really big one, where you have all these attendees coming in, they want to see the city. Why not, as a conference planner, give them a really cool customized way to do that? I mean, it's a little add-on maybe to their ticket price, and then they download the app, and on their own time, now they have this interesting way that's going to force them to kind of see the area.
Yeah.
So I think just continuing to look at different applications and how we might help connect people with different places.
Yeah, I mean, so maybe Disney isn't in the cards right away, but something like, like a Cedar Point or even a Darien Lake, or,
Yeah.
something to that effect. Like, you mentioned museums, like the National Comedy Center or even the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame would be kind of really cool things.
Yeah.
To kind of the only thing that I think you're, going to run into with that is just like some of these places change exhibits so much.
Right.
So you got to kind of figure out how do you exchange those things. But I do like the conference idea. And there's some big major cities that host a lot of big conferences, and that might be the way that you kind of look at that and say, yeah, Boston or whatever. But you
Mm-hmm.
definitely have to do something with a ghost tour or something like that. I think that would be really kind of cool.
Uh,
Halloween
yeah.
experience,
I love that. We've also talked about kind of other ways of potentially getting businesses involved. So, maybe there's one that's adults only and it's kind of a pub crawl,
Mhm.
So I just could see really cool different applications. And so
Yeah.
it's kind of neat that we have this platform that we can just keep building off of.
Yeah, no, I think that that's awesome, and again, you're opening yourself up to all the different types of areas. Like you think of like some of the chambers of commerce and things like that want to highlight, maybe like Buffalo has the sort of now official like Buffalo Wing Trail, and touching base on all the different sites, and so just along the same idea of that pub crawl.
Mm-hmm.
So, but you might have somebody like a chamber of commerce wanting you to come to their city to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's your client,
Yeah,
or
exactly.
tourism. I was trying to say the tourism
Mm-hmm.
organizations and stuff. So, um, what else? Like, what is like, the one thing that you would want to incorporate in this new venture, like in the next couple of years? Like, what's that one pie? I can't say pie in the sky one more time. But what is that one thing that you're like, all right, if we can get to do this, um, then I know like we've sort of made it.
I think I think what I'm going to call a big customized InnoQuest. So whether that is, something like the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame saying to us, this is what we want you to make, or whether that is, the tech conference that's held every year in Las Vegas saying we want a special experience just for the people who are coming to our conference.
Mhm.
But those are the things where I think if those start coming in, those calls, that's when I'll feel like we've got
Great.
this.
Cool. So if you do Vegas, are you able to like customize it to different customers and stuff? Like, like the overall interface? How does that work?
Yeah. So we could have, for example, multiple potential quests in the same area. So, like, as an example, kind of our first quest here in Rochester is probably, you know, like teen to adult oriented just in terms of difficulty of the puzzles. But we've also talked about there are some kind of tweaks we can make on our side where we could find maybe, let's say Charlotte Beach and do kind of like a kids quest where the puzzles were much easier. The interface changes, but it's not a ton of changing on our side. But to the consumer, it's a whole new experience. There's a
Mhm.
new story, there's new clues, the puzzles are easier. So I think what's kind of cool about it is this really, you know, limitless opportunity for what we can do with the platform.
Well, that's really cool. And the other thing that popped in my head is, so the historical side, the nerd in me is saying like you go to like a place like Old Bethpage in Long Island where you're re-immersed in the, 17 to 1800s. Um, those kinds of museums are always looking for interactive exhibits and trying to put something together where it's also teaching, so you got
Mm-hmm.
those field trips. Um, that was one of the big things that I remember a lot of my teacher friends saying, that we couldn't take the kids anywhere this year. Everyone's virtual learning, and now they're in school, but we still can't really go anywhere.
Right.
So that'd be a really cool use of like that technology too, and some place to look, you know. So I mean, I just remember again, like when we first met, I was like super excited about like all the different things. And it's like, it's not even my company and I'm not involved in it in any way. But I'm like, oh man, this could go in so many different directions. How do you stay on point with like, your sort of micro goals and moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, we just treat it like a real business. I mean, it is a real business. That's a ridiculous statement.
No, but I get what you're saying.
Edit that part out. But what I mean is, we have project management software.
Yeah.
We're sending things back and forth to each other. It's really, you're just sitting down during the chunk of time that you've dedicated to it, and you know what your priorities are and what you have to get done. And everything's kind of laid out in terms of the pieces that have to happen first.
Right. No, that makes a lot of sense. And having that thing to kind of ground you from your grand ideas is a great way to do it. And it is a real business, listeners. So
Thank you for clarifying.
Yeah,
It
no
is.
problem.
We're excited about it.
Today we're interviewing Ashley Fico, and we're talking about her fake business.
Oh Lord.
Doesn't that sound terrific?
CEO fail.
No, I like I said, I think that this is like a really great great business that has so much potential, not only for making it as a great business, but also helping society, and for the reasons that we've talked about today. It's a great way to maybe educate people in a very fun way. And you coming from the university background and teaching, I think that sort of bled its way in a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And the things that you're doing, that there's potential to always be learning in
Mm-hmm.
these environments. Is there anything that I haven't asked you that you definitely wanted to kind of let our listeners know more about with Interquests? Stumping question at the end.
It is. Ooh, it's like, you're on the job interview and they ask you that question. I think you covered a lot of it. I mean, I think the only thing I would add is just kind of in terms of timeline, we should be beta testing coming up pretty quick here.
Mhm.
And then we're hoping to launch this summer. So,
Great.
we are really excited to introduce people to it. And we're always, open on social media to hearing others' thoughts on kind of what might be the next great place for one, or the next partnership opportunities. So I just think there are so many possibilities.
So how do people get a hold of you? We'll definitely put it in the show notes, but like, what's the best way to kind of reach out and connect?
Yeah, so I would say probably through my LinkedIn page would be perfect.
Sure.
Either that, or just go InnoQuests.com, and we've got quick little contact us page, and that'll
Mhm.
get you to me too.
Awesome. So I really urge you as a listener to reach out to Ashley, connect with her. If you're like me, give her a million different ideas to run with and put in her project management system to kind of set for later. And anybody that's a company, or even a nonprofit organization, or a group that's looking to do something like this, either within their building or around the city, for maybe even a conference or something like that, definitely reach out to her. Like I said, I think the possibilities are sort of endless with this particular product and this business that is very real. Um, you know, and 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 I just got to keep stuttering. I would say just go out and check out the product, and join her for the what I'm sure will be a nice grand opening of your beta testing into and soon you'll be looking behind and going, wow, Vegas was great. Honolulu was better, and now we're working with the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, or maybe Disney. It'd be awesome. So, Ashley, I think it sounds absolutely terrific what you're doing, and I wish you the best of luck. And if there's anything that me or our community can do to help you move forward, please don't hesitate to contact us. So, thanks for being on the show.
Thank you so much. I had a great time, great conversation. And I really appreciate you taking the time to, help us help others learn about what we've got.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you for joining us on another episode of That Sounds Terrific. Don't forget to check out the show notes and our website at thatsoundsterrific.com to find the contact information and the best ways to volunteer with the organizations that we feature. If you know someone that is doing terrific things and think they should be featured in a future episode, be sure to email us their name, contact info, and short description of what they're doing at thatsoundsterrific@gmail.com. If you like our show, give us a 5-star rating and give us some social media love by liking our Facebook page, That Sounds Terrific. Follow us on Twitter at Sounds Terrific 2 and Instagram at Sounds Terrific. We love hearing your feedback on how to make our show sound even more terrific. Till next time.